I think most people have the words title insurance and encroachment in their vocabulary. But if they were asked to explain what that actually means, most people probably couldn't. So today, that's what we're going to change. I'm going to bring in two special guests, and we're going to talk about what that means, what it means for you, and especially how to keep things moving. So without further ado, let's bring in my two guests today. Welcome to Brenda Rogers and Christina Namauleg. Um, let's see. So Christine is with Land Title. They're both with Land Title of Kitsap County, and Brenda is a VIP and senior tax title. And Christine is with the business development department. So you guys, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming in today. Go ahead and give me a little background. Christina, why don't you start first, please?
Hi, so I am actually, I've been in the financial industry since 2007, dating myself a little bit. And then I transitioned over to the mortgage side of things. I was a loan officer for quite a while. And then recently joined Land Title in the business development as a sales rep for them April of this year.
So a lot of diverse knowledge. That's super awesome. Very helpful. Brenda, so tell me about you. You've been in the business for a long time.
Yeah, since I started here in 1992, I do not have a lot of diverse knowledge as far as working experience. But from the title side, certainly. I was in escrow for a short stint. I've been here almost 35 years now. I worked my way up from a starting position to the Kitsap County operations manager. I've also taken the Washington State Title Professional Test, passed that. So I've got those little, letters behind my business card on my name. So long time.
That is awesome. So a lot of knowledge here, you guys. I have so much knowledge in this room right now. I'm so excited. So today we're going to work with two different life scenarios. And this is things, that could happen with any homeowner. And we're going to explain what the definitions are, how it helps, how you can get help, what you need to do, that kind of stuff. I'm Niki Shelton with Real Broker, keeping it real here in Kitsap County. So let's go ahead and jump in and talk about this first scenario. So when I'm out in the field, I am like with a buyer, let's say, and we're writing up a purchase and sale contract. And one of the first things, on that front page is, who do you want for your title and your escrow? And my experience with being a real estate person out in 11 years has been that usually that's something that the seller will determine as far as the title. And you can change that a little bit too, I know, because you can always counter stuff or whatever. But before we begin, let's talk about what is title insurance. Can you explain it to me in the simplest form, like you're talking to like a 5 or 7-year-old? Because, I just like to make sure I really understand it.
Of course. So title insurance protects your interest in that property, your interest in the property being the property owner. It also protects you against the use of your property. That's where like CC&Rs and that sort of thing comes into play. So protects your ownership and your use of the property.
It protects the legal description of the property.
Yes, that's your ownership.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when do buyers usually get title insurance? I mean, like I said, it's kind of determined during the purchase and sale, but a lot of people, they don't deal with title every day, so they don't really know who to choose. And it's kind of like just choose anybody. Is that a good way to do that?
Well, typically your real estate agent has a team that they work with. They're familiar with, they understand the preferences. So buyers should feel comfortable with whoever they've chosen as a real estate agent to have a good team that surrounds them. So I know that buyers, sometimes maybe they have a family member that works at a title insurance company. They're going to want to go through that company for a closing, or their agent works with somebody very closely. Like I said, they want to put their faith in their agent and their agent's team.
Okay. And are there different types of title insurance?
For a buyer, there is different types of title insurance. The standard in our state is the Alta homeowners policy. You get a maximum coverage for a small price. There is a standard coverage policy that is equally effective. It still does all of those same things. Halt a homeowner's policy does have a little added protections in it. And then you also have an extended coverage policy, but you typically only see those in commercial transactions because they're very involved. They're very expensive. So there are a few.
Okay. And is this a one-time thing? I mean, like when you have your title checked out, is that a one-time thing, or is that something that does it keep going on?
Yeah, typically it's not like your homeowner's insurance that you get an annual premium for. This is a one-time thing. Typically seller pays for it, but of course, in a contract, everything's negotiable. But the default is the seller pays for that one-time fee at closing.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so let's look at something a little different now. Let's talk about encroachment. So I'm going to give you a scenario with two of my neighbors. I'm going to call them neighbor A and neighbor B just to keep it clean. So neighbor A, she went and she hired a landscaper to come in and do some much needed stuff around her house that she needed to get done. And so landscapers came out to do her work, and one of the jobs that they wanted was to clean along her fence line. And neighbor B, unbeknownst to neighbor A, had just planted a bunch of flowers along that fence line. And so neighbor B got really, really mad at neighbor A for having the landscapers use a power washer and stuff like that. And there was, kind of a little fight going on. And I ended up talking to neighbor A, who has the fence line. And as I was talking to her, what she told me was that, when her and her husband, who has passed by now, but so many years ago, they wanted to put in this fence, but they wanted to be super careful about the boundary lines and stuff like that. So they actually moved it like 6 or 12 inches onto her property. So technically, I mean, from what I'm seeing from my point of view, and I could be totally wrong here, so you let me know, but they planted it right next to the line, which would actually technically be on her property. So that, I guess, is my example of encroachment, or what I would see. Mm-hmm. Tell me about encroachment. I mean, I don't necessarily need you to defend either way. There were survey lines out, and we actually found them, but what is encroachment, and what should you do if something like that happens? I mean, because they were getting kind of ugly there for a moment.
Sure. Yeah, it is. People tend to try and be nice and not want to put things right on the property line. They want to give themselves a little wiggle room. Probably not the best idea. If you have a survey line, you want to be right on that line because things like this do happen. But an encroachment is any type of use of property that is not yours without a recorded instrument granting that right to use. So it could be landscaping, could be improvements. Improvements can mean a lot of things. It could mean a shed, could mean a house. It could mean eaves of a house if the property lines are that close together. So it could mean a lot of different things, but it is a right. It is a use of a piece of property that you don't have a right to by a recorded instrument.
Okay. So since it was technically on the other person's property, what are some of the things that a homeowner can do if something like that were to happen? What would you suggest? Do you call your title rep and say, hey, I have this? Do they call an attorney? I mean, what do they do?
Well, I mean, in this case, they did have a survey. So,
there was land stakes or whatever. So, I mean, I don't know how old the survey was, but yeah, I mean, there was definitely markers.
They should call a surveyor. That would be what I would recommend first off. A title company is also a good alternative. I would never tell somebody to not file a claim, whether, they feel. I have people hesitant to file claims, but file a claim with your title insurance company. My neighbors are talking about encroachments. I found some, stakes, and it does look like we're dealing with an encroachment issue here. Certainly, I'll take that in. It goes right to our claims department, and they determined if the coverage is cover that sort of thing, depending on what type of policy they have, or if there's some kind of resolution that they can have from there. But hiring a surveyor to even know if you have an encroachment is really key, because you can give all of that information to the claims department because you've done all that legwork up front.
Okay. What are what common types of encroachment here in Kitsap County?
Well, really, I mean, it's kind of universal. As I mentioned, improvements. So house, sheds, landscaping is another big one.
Yeah, I actually had a client where her neighbors purposely, well, probably not purposely, but they were trying to take over a section of property. They really thought it was their property, and it was like a flower garden, because there was a retaining wall, and they thought that the retaining wall was theirs, but it was really my client's. But she actually had to go to court for it, which was bizarre to me. Like, I just, and I was I was her sounding board, and we were going through a transaction where she was trying to sell her property, and it really was, she was selling and then trying to buy another one, and it halted everything in that deal.
Sometimes, if there are retaining walls, there's, gardens that look like that on the line. People can utilize those monuments, but they're not true monuments. The only monuments that are really, that count, are ones that are placed by a surveyor.
Okay.
But those retaining walls, because I know, like, my personal home, when I had a house, the retaining wall, we purposely put it on, like, within our property. But then as you're building that retaining wall, it goes way in. And so our neighbors at the time really thought that, like, somehow that retaining wall was theirs too, which was fine because you can do the maintenance on it. But it's so I think it's just, just like our fence, we put it in a little bit more as well. But yeah, it can look, you just want to call the surveyor if you have any issues, and then the title, I think.
So what exactly does title do there? So, I mean, like, I know you said you can call and file a claim. So what happens when that happens?
When a claim is filed, I send that on to our claims department. I take everything in. I give the claims department as much information as what the insured has given me, along with their claim form. I ask them to complete with any documentation or pictures or what have you. If they've done a survey, I pull that up, along with a copy of their policy. I send all that to claims. The claims department takes it from there. Your local title company is out of it, really, at that point. I can certainly check on things for them if they haven't heard back, or, the responses. Claims department is really busy. They're attorneys. I'm not an attorney. But it's a group of attorneys that work for our underwriters, and they take that information and go through the policy, and they then communicate directly with the insured. For one, what type of resolution are they looking for? Two, what have the neighbors done? Have the neighbors filed a court action? That does happen. So after that claim is filed, it's all handled by the attorneys and the insured.
Okay. So, I mean, I know Christina kind of went into this part already, which is cool because, it can affect the sale of a home. I mean, it can definitely slow things down until things get ironed out and stuff like that. We have a lot of irregular lots and stuff here in Kitsap County. And, I've seen so many different, like maps and stuff where it will show, like, the awning of somebody's house is totally on the other person's property, but it's like a house. It's a big, it's a big, what kind of things do they do and things like that?
There are
some kind of basic question, and probably most people know, but I'm sure there's some over there that don't know this. So
there are definitely resolutions. You can do a boundary line adjustment to resolve those issues. Whether you have to do that through the courts and the courts make you adjust those boundary lines. The courts are the be all say all, right? A judge can dictate these lines are going to be adjusted. You can be nice neighbors and go ahead and everybody gets along. And sure, I need to give you 3 feet of my property, and maybe we're exchanging property. Maybe we're making those lines jagged because I'm going to give you 3 feet over here and you're going to give me 3 feet over there. And we're going to correct these encroachments going forward. You can also grant your neighbor an easement. Say it is a house or a shed, something pretty solid that's hard to move, right? You can grant your neighbor an easement that gives them the right to use and enjoy that portion of their house or their
new word, everyone.
Yes. And that is, you can grant them a perpetual easement that goes along and follows the property forever. You can make provisions in those easements that say, well, if the house gets destroyed, we have a tornado, fire, they need to rebuild it on their own property, right? There are things that you can do. You can grant a license that only goes to the property owners that you're granting it to, so it doesn't follow to any future buyer. Then that buyer has to start over. So
what I'm hearing from you, it's probably best case scenario is if there is an issue like that, you should try to talk to your neighbors and be kind to each other and try to work things out and come to a solution where it's not going to be that route. But if they're not willing to work with you, then yes, you should contact your title reps and file a claim. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Is there any others, like really, like I know we have a lot of waterfront properties. Are there any things that people need to really consider? I mean, just because it's here in Kitsap, and I always like to talk really kind of down here with our community. Is there any other encroachments that you see a lot of that are here in Kitsap County that people need to be aware of?
I mean, I don't think it's really any different than anywhere else. Yes, we do have a lot of waterfront. People get particular about their waterfront. They get very protective because they're very expensive homes and land. So that can be a little more challenging. Emotions get involved when you start talking about money. But really, it's all down to somebody else using your property for whatever. They could be using it for a driveway. Maybe somebody's driveway is even encroaching. So driveways, improvements, landscaping. It could be somebody mowing yard that doesn't belong to them even. So they don't even have to occupy it. They're just maintaining it. That can be considered an encroachment.
Okay. I've also heard of, just access rights to the beach that they just assume that they have.
Yeah, that's more of an unrecorded easement situation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah, that wouldn't necessarily be an encroachment. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But that does happen.
Yes.
But if a homeowner, let's say, was living on the water, going with what Christina said, and they kept allowing public to walk through there, at some point it might be an granted easement or something because they've allowed it for so many years or something. Isn't there something like that or no?
That would be a prescriptive easement.
Oh, we learned so much today.
Learning.
Yeah, and it's really not a granted right. So, that homeowner now sells and you still have people walking across your property.
Oh.
That gets a little challenging.
Okay. You guys, thank you so much for joining me today. It was a wealth of information, and I appreciate you both being here today and for sharing all of your knowledge. I know title and encroachments can seem intimidating, but you've helped so much break these topics down into something that homeowners can actually really use and understand. If you're buying or selling a home and have questions about title, property lines, or anything that we've talked about today, don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you again so much for joining me, you both. It's been great having you here. And go ahead and like this and subscribe so that way you can get your weekly real estate education from me. Thanks so much and have a great rest of your week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.